Madison and Wall launched its newest global advertising forecast last week, and we're forecasting 8% growth for what is now, on our estimates, a $1.4 trillion global advertising industry. We've now gone into depth on 10 different countries with a roadmap to get to 50, by the way, coming up in the next few months. But we can still forecast the world because of the concentration of the industry among a small number of large global players. So, this is not maybe a shocker, but it is important to note that this is way broader than just Google, Meta, and Amazon taking over the world. It's the global platforms, whether that's a Reddit, whether that's a Snap, a Pinterest. Collectively, those are the players that are actually driving most of the growth for the industry. And it's something that it's surprising how resilient it's been considering all the macroeconomic concerns out there, which are all very real.
It seems like we've lived in a time the last few years of constant economic volatility, economic uncertainty. So is that already baked in then for advertisers?
Yeah, well, first of all, advertisers are spending despite those problems, obviously not because of them. It arguably hampers some of the growth that might have otherwise occurred. But because advertisers are increasingly allocating resources on a very short-term basis, tying spend to the most immediate signals they have. We have all these concerns that are valid, but on a short-term basis, consumers keep buying things. And as long as that keeps happening, as long as the economy continues to actually do okay in aggregate, not everywhere, then there's still a lot of growth. I think that marketers are likely to decelerate their growth in spending because these levels are really not sustainable. Double-digit growth, which we've seen in the first couple of quarters of this year, is just not a durable number. Not when you have an economy that's growing in more like a mid-single-digit level. So while there will be pockets of growth that can sustain really aggressive, robust numbers, like certainly social media, commerce media, they will be well into the teens around the world for a while. The overall advertising industry does have to decelerate, and that's before we get to the real negative macroeconomic issues that go from being fears to reality.
Let's also take a look at the media side. There's been some big news this week, obviously the Roku and Fox News. What's your take there, and what, if anything, will be the impact on advertisers and the options that they have on streaming?
Yeah, well, one thing that's interesting in looking at both Fox, Roku, but also then the other news just yesterday, Vibe getting acquired by Walmart, and pair that with Publicis buying LiveRamp. What we're seeing is a number of platforms trying to integrate way more deeply and cutting across a much broader array of product solutions and services. Not quite going back to the old day of the conglomerate, but much more of an end-to-end within a set of solutions is what we're seeing. That's the common thread here. You could argue that this is kind of an extension of what we think is going to happen with the Google PMaxes and Meta's Advantage Pluses, where there's a set it and forget it element of it, or there's more convenience baked into the overall solution, whatever that is for the marketer. That seems to be a common theme if we can connect these dots, but more practically, I think if you're Walmart, you want to broaden your business, clearly there's a lot of opportunity in commerce media. That's easy. If you're Fox, very tactically, hey, get to 17% share of the ad inventory in US television market on our estimates, makes a lot of sense. Those transactions, that one in particular, is not without its challenges because Roku is a very different business, however. But I think that there's going to be a lot of ongoing M&A activity in the year to come.
Brian, we somehow didn't lead with the question about the state of AI and that area's impact on advertising. There's a lot of preparation, at least, for advertising through LLMs. What's the sense of the state now and where it's going?
Yeah, well, AI is like saying software. To say you've got AI is just, well, yeah, there's error here too. It's just the modern evolution of what software is, and software is a core element of the operations of the industry. AI will be applied in a lot of places. It may lead to different winners, different losers, but it doesn't change the overall trajectory of things that much. With that said, I think products that have more AI are probably better positioned than those which are not. Entities, companies, marketers, advertising agencies that invest more aggressively in these products and platforms probably fare better than those which don't. I think the opposite could also occur where you invest too much and the market doesn't show up quickly enough. That is a real risk for some of the hyperscalers out there.
Brian, switching gears a little bit, to your own growth story. Madison and Wall has been around for roughly 3 years, and you are, it's not even a projection, you are globally expanding. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we've made some very exciting news in the past week. We've announced the appointment of James McDonald, who has been working for WARC as their global media analyst. He's joining us at Madison and Wall. That's going to allow us to add a lot more research, real financial analysis going into the industry issues in countries around the world. It'll also allow us, as we build out our own content management system and user interface, to provide what looks like a much more robust syndicated research offering. We also added Mike Lasaga from Magna. So we've had Mike Lasaga from Magna, Luke Stillman from Magna. Of course, I built the product there in the 2000s. And that's allowing us to broaden the coverage to 50 countries of data, quarterly advertising data, and a lot of other stuff. Frankly, by September, we hope to have that in the market.
So lastly, Brian, what things on the horizon are either causes for concern or just constant watching, or is there anything that is particularly a particular bright point that you're looking for?
So geopolitics are still very, very important, and domestic politics too, if we're looking at the United States. There are real reasons to remain concerned and remain cautious, defensive, because policies that we have seen in the United States are stagflationary, and we don't see enough concern about that. We see more concern about some geopolitical issues going to cause inflation to spike, and then there's an implied assumption that that leads to negative economic outcomes. Not necessarily. Oil is a lot less important now than it was decades ago. Inflation is actually usually additive to the advertising market. So by itself, that's less of an issue. The bigger issue comes to whether or not policies actually have the effect of disrupting supply chains across broader industries, whether or not isolating the United States in particular from the world in many respects has all sorts of other consequences, and other policies yet to come, which make, unfortunately, the United States a less reliable trading partner, have real negative risks. You also have the uneven distribution of wealth and income and consequences that will follow for broader consumer categories. These things haven't broken yet, but we need to be mindful of them, and marketers, advertisers, sellers of advertising all need to be prepared to be defensive at the right time.